same setup, but just with a dumbbell, complex dumbbell. Done in exactly the same way as the other rig, but you put it's best to put the dumbbell on lengthways, only because if you put it on the other way, it just makes it a bit more difficult for the fish to suck it into his mouth and reject it easier. You know, if he thinks there's something wrong with it, he can blow it out a lot quicker. This way it enters the mouth a lot easier, just through the shape and the shape and the size of it. So it's very, very basic, but it catches a lot of fish. The other rig I haven't really used since I've been here, but this is a rig I come up with years and years ago. It got given the name the Withy Pool rig, which is fair enough. It was where I first used it and what I actually designed this rig for. It's a very wary carp at Withy Pool. I don't know if you can see that very well. I mean, most of you know this rig and seen it, and I have done a couple of articles on this rig. It's probably one of the best anti-eject rigs for wary carp there is on the market today. It looks very complicated. It looks a little bit. It looks odd as a carp rig, but it's very, very effective. Very, very good pop-up rig. Or you can use it on the bottom. I mean, I always use it as a pop-up rig normally, but I have used it with bottom baits, and it works just as well. It works on the flip and turn method. You know, it's all about the curve. I mean, as long as you keep that slight curve in there, that will turn every time. And what that does, it grips hold. As you can see, it's taken hold of my finger, which is what it's doing to the carp's mouth. As soon as he sucks that in, that pop-up is at the top by the stop. But if he blows it, you've got quite a bit of travel for anti-eject. So that gives you enough time for that to flip and turn onto the finger. And with that curve as tight as it is, it actually grips hold of the fish. So if a fish is trying to suck and blow or shake his head, that's actually gripped hold of the fish's mouth. It's a very, very effective rig. As I say, I haven't found it necessary to put it on at the moment, because I've done fairly well on my first trip at Hardwick, and I've tried to keep the baits on the bottom purely because the fish aren't really having it. And I think a pop-up on a very clear bottom is more prevalent to a carp, and he knows that there's something wrong with that compared with all the others that are laying on the bottom. One little method I just thought I'd like to show people, is a method that I find very good for confusing the fish, also very good for anti-tangles. I use this when I'm using the nylon rig with a double bait on it. It's just it's not going to sound new to any of you, but it's a stringer, just done in a slightly different way than what I've seen most people use it. I'm using sort of seven baits basically on a double bait. You'll see why in a minute. The idea behind this is you're actually surrounding the hook bait with crikey, the wind's getting up a bit. You're surrounding the hook bait with a variety of baits around it, so it makes the fish, it confuses them into testing which is the hook bait. And if you're just casting out a hook bait on its own and you've got the same amount of freebies, the slight difference in the weight of the hook or the rig or whatever it'll be makes it easier for the carp to detect which one's the hook bait. Basically what you do is you just tie the loose end of the PVA onto the hook. I normally tie it 3 times. I use the Gardner stretchy PVA. I've always used this one. It's so easy to use, and it stretches as well, if you're a little bit tight for space. And the little thing I do now is just slide the knot up near the knotless knot, and then actually hook the hook through the loop on the first boilie you've tied onto, and then you push the hook baits inside all of the inside of the circle that's left. And then what I do, which I haven't got with me now, but most of you know what dissolving foam is, put a piece of dissolving foam over the hook so it keeps the hair in place, so it doesn't, when you cast it, and the boilies stay exactly as you can see it. So you can imagine the fish coming in. it hasn't got a clue what it's come up against. It's going to try and pick up these different baits, and it won't have a clue. It won't even regulate its suck, and hopefully it will just suck up, you know, probably the majority. That we get a big fish in the area, it will suck up the majority of baits that are there. It's a method I've used for quite a few years now, probably 4 or 5 years, maybe longer than that actually, and it's done me very good. You know, I've caught a lot of big 30s on this sort of method, and a lot of other smaller fish too. So the advantage of this is once you put the foam on, if you cast into the weed, the actual weight of the whole thing, you know, it doesn't matter if you're casting into weed. It's, you know your presentation's pretty safe. Just going back a little bit, just onto one of the rigs, the Withy Pool rig. I'd just like to mention that I use this rig a lot for very, very cautious carp, and I use it a lot in the winter in conjunction with Richworth's aero pop-ups. I use 2. I use the squid octopus and the pineapple Hawaiian. They're both very, very effective. They do quite a few different flavours, Scopex and white chocolate. Probably the white chocolate be a good winter one, but I've chose these 2. These are the ones I stick with, and I've caught a lot of fish on them. Very, very good pop-ups. They stay popped up for 36 hours at least. You know, they are top quality pop-ups. The other thing that I do use in conjunction with those pop-ups is some of the Richworth dips. Depending on what bait I'm using, let's say I was using multiplex or complex, they do a range of dips which not only enhances your hook bait, it hardens the hook bait as well. Little tip I use if you're using these little bottles, because they are quite difficult to get the baits out of, is I tie a stringer again, but with dental floss. And if you tie the baits on, there's not many left on there, but if you tie the bottom bait on and just thread a load of them down the dental floss and then just lower them in, all you've got to do is lift the dental floss out, take one off, and Bob's your uncle, as they say. Sorry, Uncle Bob. But it's just a little tip that, you know, I don't know whether probably people have sussed that one out already, but, you know, these dips are very, very good for catching on single hook baits, and if you're fishing, you know, you want to enhance your hook bait even further. That's about all I've got to say on the bait side, I think. Right, basically coming to the end of this session. I've really enjoyed my trip. First trip to Hardwick Lake. What a complex. I think it's seriously worth checking out. You know, I'll definitely be coming back again. Really enjoyed it, very well run. Some awesome looking fish, probably some of the best in the country. So I don't think you'll fail to enjoy yourselves down here. Hopefully you've enjoyed what I've had to say and enjoyed the fish that I've caught. I'll perhaps see you on the bank, be lucky, and hopefully see you soon.
Well, against all odds, Steve Renyard really showed what a class angler he is, catching a 30 from Hardwick on an exceptionally hard day. Well, as you can see, Og's finished off the meal, which just leaves us to say goodbye. And get yourself a break now, get yourself a cup of tea and some biscuits, and join my good friend Chris Ball for the second part of this superb DVD, when he'll be talking to Lee Jackson, Martin Clark, Brian Jarrett and Rocket Ron Buss. Good angling, see you soon.
Cheers.